My wife changed after a work trip, then I discovered her therapist was an old friend who convinced her to cheat and ruined our marriage. I noticed a difference in my wife, Carla, about 6 or 7 months ago. She had just returned from her company's annual trip, which was organized by her manager to assist their team reunite and build their bonds. Usually, she returned from these excursions energized, full of anecdotes about her coworkers and eager to share minor experiences that had amused or inspired her. This time, things were different. Her temperament has changed noticeably since the day she returned home. She didn't discuss much about the vacation, which surprised me. When I questioned whether anything had happened, she simply shook her head and dismissed my fears. At first, I attributed it to the usual post-trip fatigue. Maybe she was just exhausted from all the traveling, socializing, and team-building activities. But even after a few days, her behavior remained the same. In fact, things worsened. Carla became angry with me, starting disputes over little matters that would not have disturbed her in the past. Before, my wife and I rarely fought. Our relationship was always healthy. But suddenly, the accustomed calm gave way to strain. Every day, it was as if she was hunting for reasons to dispute, and these disagreements seemed to arise out of nowhere. A comment that would have made her chuckle suddenly resulted in a sigh, or, worse, a fight. I couldn't understand where this sudden fury and frustration was coming from. It was no longer just the disputes. My wife began to isolate herself in different ways. We had a weekly date ritual, which could be as simple as getting coffee or going for a lengthy walk in the park. These outings were meaningful to us because they provided us with a chance to reconnect, unwind, and focus on one another away from the distractions of work and daily life. But Carla began canceling our dates with increasingly dubious explanations. She would complain about being too tired or having too much work to catch up on, even on weekends. My concern grew as the cancellations increased. I miss spending time with my wife, our connection, and our laughter. Her mood swings become increasingly pronounced. She appeared fine one minute and then became moody and withdrawn, retreating within herself. Of course, my mind wandered. I began to worry that she was losing interest in me, or, worse, that she had fallen in love with someone else. I didn't want to think about it, but her behavior seemed so strange and out of character that I began to contemplate options I hadn't considered before. When I eventually approached Carla with my fears, she was emphatic, insisting that there was no one else but me. She even gaslighted me, claiming that I was overthinking things and that she simply needed time to straighten things out in her life. So I attempted to give Carla some space, believing that whatever she was going through would resolve itself with time. I figured if I didn't press her and just gave her space to breathe, she'd eventually come around and things would return to normal. But, sadly, it did not occur. In fact, the more room I gave her, the farther away she appeared to float. She started working longer hours and came home late, sometimes after I had gone to bed. In general, she would tell me stories about her day, hilarious anecdotes about her coworkers, or complain about the current office drama. Now there was only silence. After she returned home, she became increasingly evasive when I tried to question her, and her acts began to create concerns in my mind. With our relationship on unstable ground, I recommended to my wife that we seek marriage therapy. I hoped that with the help of a counselor, she would be able to open up to me and we could figure out what was causing our disconnect. To my astonishment, Carla declined, stating that she wanted to visit a therapist independently and that she needed to focus on herself before we could work on our relationship together. While it didn't meet my expectations, I agreed. Ultimately, I wanted her to feel supported in any manner she needed. Carla soon found a therapist and began meeting with them 3 times a week for 2-hour sessions. I didn't ask too many questions about it, assuming she'd found someone qualified to help her. All I wanted was for her to achieve the clarity and calm she was looking for, and for us to be able to reconnect. Carla appeared to be in a better mood following each session, lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. I hoped that this was a sign that things would get better between us, that this was the start of a new chapter in our relationship. Instead, things became stranger. Carla began spending more time away from home, frequently making plans without me. It began with a few evenings here and there, but it quickly spread to almost every weekend. She'd go without much of an explanation and not return until late at night. I don't mind if she goes out with her buddies. In fact, I've always pushed her to pursue a life outside of our marriage. But I expected her to give me a heads up. Her frequent and sudden absences, along with her failure to keep me informed, made me feel neglected in my own marriage. Meanwhile, Carla appeared unconcerned about the fact that I missed spending time with her, no clue of how much I craved our former intimacy. What troubled me even more was when I realized, almost unintentionally, that my wife wasn't only spending time with friends on her little adventures. Apparently, she was also hanging out with random strangers she met at bars. This was something she had never told me. I only discovered out after several of my friends expressed worry. They had seen her at bars, dancing with strange men, apparently intoxicated and acting in ways that were entirely out of character. They'd recognized her as my wife. It was humiliating to learn of my wife's behavior secondhand, knowing that others were watching her behaviors while I remained in the dark. I was absolutely confused, dealing with the embarrassment and uncertainty that her behavior had caused. When I finally built up the courage to bring it up, hoping for an open discussion about what was going on, she rejected my concerns. She waved them off, explaining that she was just having fun and that dancing and talking to strangers did not imply that she was doing anything inappropriate with them. She said it as if her activities in meeting these strangers were insignificant, as if I shouldn't be touched by this version of herself that I scarcely recognized. Then she stopped assisting around the house. Since we both started working, we've always divided household tasks evenly. I've always cooked and packed our lunches every day. Carla handled the dishes, loading and unloading the dishwasher, and was in charge of the washing, while I did all of the folding and grass mowing. This system of shared responsibility has always been effective for us. But Carla abruptly ceased holding up her half of the bargain. She began to moan about how she felt oppressed by having to perform housekeeping, claiming that none of her friends appeared to have to work both at their jobs and from home. We had always had a mutual understanding, an equal give and take that allowed us both to concentrate on our careers while keeping our home in order. Her sudden irritability seemed utterly out of character. When she voiced these objections, I attempted to comprehend her point of view, but I couldn't ignore the facts. I pointed out that if she was referring to her neighborhood acquaintances, most of them were stay-at-home spouses who spent their entire day running their homes. I said that if she was feeling burdened by both work and housework, we should consider her leaving her job to run the household full-time, and I would gladly take on the position of sole earner. However, if she did not want to leave her job, she needed to understand that we both had to share home responsibilities. After all, I had never complained about the housework I did, so why was she bringing it up? Carla insisted that she no longer wanted to do housekeeping, claiming that her obligations at work were already too taxing, and she didn't want to come home and work on top of that. She told me I needed to step up and take care of things around the house, at least until she felt more prepared. Since then, I've been performing all of the household responsibilities by myself, with no assistance. I take care of the cooking, cleaning, and laundry to ensure that everything works properly. I hoped that she would finally recognize and appreciate my efforts. But, sadly, my work has gone unnoticed. So, after all of my efforts, imagine my surprise when I realized that 2 months ago, my wife was going around the neighborhood spreading false allegations about me. I learned from some of my male neighbors, whose wives are acquainted with Carla. These friends, who have known me for a long time, sounded concerned about what my wife had said. Carla had apparently been characterizing me as a domineering or poisonous husband, stating that I never allowed her to live calmly. When some of these wives inquired as to what I was doing to make her feel this way, Carla claimed that over time, she had realized that I was too closed-minded and had prevented her from having any enjoyment. As a result, she began to feel unfulfilled in our marriage. This, she claimed, was why she began engaging with other men. To help her reconnect with pieces of herself that she felt had become too suppressed since marrying me. She also told her friends that she had begun fantasizing about exploring her femininity with other men. At first, I clearly did not trust them. This did not sound like Carla at all. Carla, I knew, was always discreet about our relationship and avoided discussing personal topics, particularly with our friends. Also, why would she lie about me like this? I'd never stopped her from doing anything. For months, she had been doing anything she wanted as I stood silently by. She suddenly blamed me for being toxic and repressing her. I chose to face her directly, telling her what my friends had revealed to me. I asked her whether it was true that she had been talking about me this way. I wanted to hear her side of the story and understand why she felt compelled to share those details with others. To my surprise, Carla did not dispute any of it. She quietly revealed that she had communicated her sentiments with those people, explaining that she was dissatisfied and unsure about our relationship, so she vented her anger to others. I asked her what she meant exactly. Carla began to open up about her therapy sessions, revealing how her therapist had helped her recognize what she lacked in her life: enthusiasm. She informed me, in an unnaturally detached tone, that she now found me uninteresting and predictable, and that our marriage lacked passion. These words stung, especially since I had always imagined she was happy with the life we had created together. I reminded her of all the times she had expressed happiness, and how we had worked together to maintain our relationship balanced and fulfilling over the years. Instead of understanding where I was coming from, she accused me of stifling her by clinging to old memories and situations that she believed were obsolete. She argued that, while she had grown and kept up with the changes, I had remained the same, which was why we were so disconnected. My thoughts began to spin, so I asked her bluntly, "What do you want from our marriage?" She hesitated, evidently nervous, before adding that she and her therapist believed that an open marriage could help us restore our marriage. I was taken aback. I told her up front that I did not believe in open weddings. Carla then claimed that even if I didn't believe in them, she did. She stated that talking up about our relationship would restore the excitement she felt was missing, allowing her to rediscover herself while remaining married to me. She also emphasized that, in an open marriage, if I wasn't comfortable sleeping with strangers, that was fine, but she wanted the opportunity to do so without guilt. Her suggestion sent me reeling. I could scarcely understand what she was saying. I never expected that our marriage would reach a stage where she would seek satisfaction elsewhere. How could meeting new people while still married improve our relationship? How could her therapist propose something like this? I assumed my wife was seeing a therapist to improve herself, but in actuality, this so-called therapist was merely encouraging her to explore these crazy beliefs. I informed Carla that if she wanted a divorce, she didn't have to lie about being excited or needing anything new in her life. I argued that if she was so dissatisfied with me, she should just be honest instead of making up excuses to justify an open marriage. I told her that it was better for us to part ways than to stay married while meeting up with strangers. This was not how I imagined a marriage to be, and I couldn't stand by it. But, to my astonishment, Carla fought back, insisting she enjoyed being married to me. She highlighted how much she respected me as a dependable and trustworthy partner, and how I offered a stable basis that she valued. Yet, in the same breath, she said the spark between us had vanished. She insisted that we stay married and simply have fun with other people. She suggested that this new venture could help us and keep our marriage interesting. I informed my wife that I needed time to think about it because this was not a decision I could take lightly. But as I spent the following few days pondering on our relationship, I realized that an open marriage was not for me. And more crucially, neither was the person Carla had become. She had changed so much over time that I could no longer recognize her or feel close to her. She dressed differently. Her outfits had suddenly become more exposing and provocative. She was always hooked to her phone and engaged in chats with others. It was as if she had adopted a whole different lifestyle, one that no longer allowed for the principles we formerly shared. She seldom spoke to me anymore and had completely disregarded her job in maintaining our home. She treated me as a roommate at best, not a partner. I slowly realized that I did not want this version of my wife. I didn't want a companion who needed to see other people to feel satisfied. I had spent months trying to be patient, supportive, and give her the space she required, but the Carla I had fallen in love with had vanished, replaced by someone who appeared to consider our relationship as a convenience rather than a commitment. And it stung. But I understood it might be time to let go of our marriage. I had done everything I could, but it was clearly insufficient. After 2 weeks of careful consideration, I got down with Carla and informed her that I wanted a divorce. I explained all of the reasons I had given above and persuaded her not to challenge my decision. Carla, on the other hand, became enraged almost immediately. She accused me of being overly sensitive and felt that requesting a divorce was an unreasonable response. She couldn't understand why I wouldn't just give in and embrace the new lifestyle she was offering. I remained calm, emphasizing that this was not what I wanted and that she couldn't compel me to accept it. Each point I made seemed to make her angrier. Carla suddenly turned on me, accusing me of refusing to work on our marriage, alleging that I was the root of the problem. I wasn't surprised by her decision. She had always enjoyed gaslighting me and blaming me for everything without taking any responsibility herself. I tried to reason with her, but she refused to give in. Realizing we were going nowhere, I asked her to go. Since this was my house, I felt right in telling her to gather her belongings and go now that we were finished. Carla raged at me, saying I had no right to ask her to leave, and even threatened to ruin my life if I followed through with the divorce. Her wrath simply confirmed my choice, so I held firm, quietly advising her not to escalate the issue any further. In the end, she had no choice but to comply, but only after throwing a tantrum. She threw stuff around the home and even scratched my car in a fit of wrath before departing. Fortunately, I documented everything, photographic evidence of the damage and recordings of her outbursts, knowing that I would probably need it later on. This was simply a sad, terrible end to what had once been a really important relationship. Carla has been texting me insults about my manhood and spreading tales around town, accusing me of unfairly kicking her out and calling me a coward for failing to fight for our marriage. Update 1. Thank you everyone for your warm words. I'm not a fool. I now recognize that my wife may have had an affair, or several affairs, outside of our marriage. This is probably why she had the nerve to propose an open marriage to me. Clearly, she only wanted the benefits of being married to someone as established as me while putting no effort into our relationship. Why did this happen? I have no idea. Perhaps she never truly loved me, or she fell out of love over time. It doesn't really matter anymore. Carla continues to leave voicemails blaming me for everything. I'm tired of her continual allegations. Update 2. It has been 2 weeks since my last update. Carla had been wanting to meet for the past week, messaging and calling regularly, so I finally agreed to meet with her today. Part of me hoped she'd come around, that she'd be willing to discuss openly and even accept responsibility for everything that had happened between us. But as soon as we sat down, Carla went into a new story. She indicated that her therapist thought I was departing our marriage just because things had become difficult. According to this so-called therapist, I was the one who failed to fulfill my promise by refusing to adhere to Carla's requests. Then, as if that wasn't enough, Carla said she was willing to accept me back if I agreed to certain terms. I was taken aback. Take me back? Remember when I asked her for a divorce? To entertain myself, I inquired about her condition. Carla requested that I commit to an open marriage and allow her to leave her job so she could enjoy a stress-free life without having to worry about work. Hearing this made me laugh out loud. Initially, I assumed she was joking. How could she possibly be doubling down on such ridiculous expectations after everything that had occurred? Did she really expect me to be open to any of this after how she had treated me? Her total lack of self-awareness was astonishing. I told her right away that I would never agree to such foolish demands, because I was done with our marriage. I then stated that I had previously consulted with a lawyer and was in the process of filing for divorce. Her face became white with horror. Her tone changed immediately, from angry to imploring. She inquired whether I was really leaving her. I nodded. There was nothing left for me in our marriage. I was ultimately tired of trying to make things work with someone who seemed removed from reality and unwilling to compromise. Then Carla burst into tears. I was surprised to see her cry. This was the last thing I had expected. I gently urged her to calm down and explain why she was reacting in this way. Was she truly saddened over my decision? She should have anticipated this all along, right? Watching her cry made me question whether there was something more going on. I begged her to be honest with me. Was there something more behind her unusual conduct during the last few months? Carla finally opened up and revealed the truth. She added that approximately a year ago, she reconnected with an old high school acquaintance named Elle during their reunion. Elle was a self-proclaimed relationship expert on social media. Carla stated that she and Elle began spending more and more time together, rekindling their connection through long conversations and regular meetups. She acknowledged that Elle had begun to exert a big effect in her life. Over time, Carla disclosed that it was Elle who first noticed that she was unhappy in our marriage and began probing her about me and our relationship. Carla admitted that as she told Elle more about me and our life together, he frequently criticized our marriage, portraying it as oppressive and limiting. Elle continually reminded Carla of how exciting and adventurous she was in high school, when she had numerous boyfriends, and how she had always expected Carla to be the same way. Elle, on the other hand, thought Carla had gotten uninteresting. This caused Carla to resent me. She essentially blamed me for her change in conduct. She felt as if she had lost herself in the marriage, and rather than accepting responsibility for her own actions, she transferred her dissatisfaction onto me. Over time, her animosity grew, and she began to emotionally remove herself, certain that I was the reason she wasn't living the life she desired for herself. Elle gradually convinced Carla that the only way she could return to her old self was to let go of her inhibitions, be more open around others, and simply have fun. When Carla's business trip came around 7 months ago, Elle encouraged her to take advantage of the opportunity to let loose and flirt with her male coworkers, especially because she would be away from home and me. Carla then admitted to having made out with someone during her work trip but refused to tell me his name. She informed me that after returning from the vacation, she felt terrible shame but was too afraid to admit it. However, Elle was overjoyed for her and encouraged her to branch out beyond our marriage. Carla stated that going out to clubs and getting attention from men made her feel recognized and validated. It excited her, and she began to pursue that high. She knew she was doing something bad all along, but she couldn't stop herself. So, when I finally suggested counseling, she was worried she'd give in and tell me the truth, forcing me to leave her. Instead, she sought therapy as a cover-up. These so-called treatment sessions were not actually therapy at all. They were just meetings with Elle to gossip and vent. Carla said that she trusted Elle fully because they had known each other for years and she believed Elle knew her better than anyone else. Elle's influence grew so strong that Carla began to internalize what her friend told her. that she deserved freedom and excitement, regardless of the consequences. When I approached her and explained my worries, Elle would convince Carla that I was controlling or toxic, that I was preventing her from expressing her true self. In fact, it was because of Elle that Carla had begged for an open marriage, expecting me to give in. But, to her amazement, I hadn't. Rather, I had kicked her out. Inside, Carla informed me that she had wanted to tell me the truth after that, but Elle had persuaded her to keep control of the situation, to keep me on edge and force me to chase her instead. Elle had forcefully persuaded Carla not to apologize at this lunch, suggesting that she should demand what she wanted from me. However, Elle's advice backfired, and instead of breaking, I appeared more determined than ever to pursue a divorce. That's why Carla eventually revealed the truth. Carla urged me to not leave her. She admitted that she had most likely lost her mind temporarily, that Elle's influence had muddled her judgment. She said that because her buddy was a relationship expert, she believed her counsel. However, it was now evident that none of it had helped, it had just exacerbated the situation. Carla stated that now that she had finally come clean, she was ready to pursue legitimate therapy and, if I was willing, attend marriage counseling together. I could tell Carla was eager for one last shot to recreate what we had, promising to do everything it needed to make up. However, I was unwilling to give her another chance. Clearly, Elle had influenced my wife's decision, but she wasn't the only issue here. Carla had also been involved in all of this. She had made her own decisions, deliberately and knowingly. For months, she could have mended our connection by having an honest discussion about her feelings as an adult. Instead, she chose to keep everything bottled up and succumb to Elle's destructive advice. She had gaslighted me, twisted me, and rejected my emotions, all while claiming everything was fine. Also, she had cheated on me. And now, when it was too late, she had only spoken the truth out of desperation.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.